Jimmy Kimmel takes a bold step in comedy. Plus, I have a lot to say about the second episode of Game of Thrones and the return of The Good, the Bad, and the Martin. Welcome to the newest episode of SDW.
Super Dario World!
It's a me,
Dario!
Woohoo! Let's go!
All right, I'm chomping at the bit to get into all of this, but first, a big reminder that the podcast is now officially on iTunes, so please subscribe there. You can easily find it by typing in Super Dario World Podcast in the iTunes Store search bar. If you could also rate me there, that would be extremely helpful, but you can still find the podcast, however, on SoundCloud and YouTube. I'm still working on the verification for the iHeartRadio app, so I'll keep you posted about that. As always, please add me on social media. You can find me on Instagram at Dario the Show. You can always contact me there with any comments, questions, or suggestions. The feedback is great. I have a few suggestions that I will try out this week, like a top 3 of things I hope will and won't happen during Avengers Endgame, the biggest film release of the year, as well as digging a little deeper into each episode of Game of Thrones. So please let me know what you think about these ideas and hit me up if you have any more suggestions. But okay, let's get started. So comedian Jimmy Kimmel, host of the show Jimmy Kimmel Live, made big news last Friday by announcing he will recreate 2 classic Norman Lear comedies for an ABC primetime special. The shows he's planning on recreating are All in the Family and The Jeffersons. So... yes! Slow clap for Jimmy Kimmel. This is awesome. I love this. For those of you who know those shows, you're probably as excited as I am. But for those of you who don't, let me just read you a quick synopsis of what each show was about. For All in the Family, here it goes. Archie Bunker was a bigoted working-class family man who held his views of the world. His viewpoints clash with nearly everyone he comes into contact with, especially his feminist daughter and his liberal son-in-law. For The Jeffersons, a newly rich African-American family who move into a luxury apartment building develop close, if occasionally fractious, relationships with other tenants. So both shows did not give a fuck who they offended, but particularly All in the Family. I mean, the main character, Archie Bunker, is widely considered the most offensive character in TV history. But the point of the show wasn't to be offensive, it was to show you both sides and how ridiculous it is when they clash together. They also wanted to start conversations on topics that other people were afraid to approach. And they did it in a way that was funny for everybody. That's hard, man, because this is a show that half the time it's going to be offending half of the audience, at least, maybe even more. But they still managed to pull it off, and it was one of the most successful shows of the 70s. However, it is widely agreed that there's no chance of a show like this being able to run today. None whatsoever. It could never work. The PC climate in comedy today would never allow it. How offensive were they? Well, let me show you. This is kind of a longer clip. I usually do shorter clips. This is about 1:30, and it's the Jeffersons and the Bunkers in the same room together because they used to be neighbors before the Jeffersons got a spin-off show. Anyway, this is so you can get a taste of how both families worked and kind of the vibe of both shows.
That's just stupid there, Jefferson. Besides, getting elected, there's more to that than just being smart.
There is, huh? Then how come we don't have a black president? I mean, some of our black people are just as dumb as Nixon.
You ain't got a black president, Jefferson, because God ain't ready for that yet.
Wait a second. What?
That's right. God's got to try it out first by making a black pope, which he ain't done yet.
Or maybe that's because God ain't Catholic.
We know that, Lionel.
Can't you men change the subject?
Yeah, Gloria's right. This is no time
I'm
to be...
talking, Michael.
Oh, boy.
Is that all you can talk about? Whether a black man or a white man should be president?
Well, what do you want to talk about, little girl?
How about a woman president?
Oh, holy cow.
A woman president?
Mr. Jefferson, this may come as a big surprise to you, but women are much more oppressed than blacks.
I don't see no ghetto for women.
What do you call a kitchen?
I call it a prison.
Hey, out of this, Louise, you're talking foolish.
Do you know what Shirley Chisholm said? Shirley Chisholm said that she ran into more discrimination because she was a woman than because she was black.
That's why she didn't get elected.
Right.
Because she was talking foolish.
So imagine that in TV today. In one clip, this is not even 2 minutes, they talk about race, politics, religion, sexism, income inequality. You name it. There's probably more there that I missed. But yeah, less than 2 minutes. And it doesn't stop. It's a show that doesn't stop. They didn't give a fuck. So again, a lot of people going back to watch the show, they're like, no, it was just rude and it was promoting a rude culture. So again, the consensus has always been these shows were great, but they would never work today. So kudos to Jimmy Kimmel for having the balls to try this out again on TV. Here's a quote from Jimmy about it. The fact that a group of Oscar winners eagerly agreed to play these iconic characters is a testament to the greatness of these shows and their creator, Norman Lear. To be a part of this is a dream come true for me and everyone involved. Who's the cast? Well, here you go. We have Woody Harrelson and Marissa Tomei as Archie and Edith Bunker, Jamie Foxx and Wanda Sykes as George and Louise Jefferson, Ellie Kemper from The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt and The Office will play Gloria Stivic, and Will Ferrell, the Will Ferrell, will play Tom Willis, and Justina Machado will play Florence Johnson. Are you kidding me? These are mostly A-listers. Like Kimmel says, Academy Award-winning A-listers and a few extras. It's being directed by James Burrows, who's a comedy heavyweight. He directed and produced shows like Cheers, Will and Grace, Frasier, just to name a few. And produced by Jimmy Kimmel, a comedy heavyweight. This could be monumental for the world of comedy. Now, they might get destroyed, completely and thoroughly destroyed, but I love this. I love that somebody had the balls to try this out, to say, you know what, enough of the PC police, enough of the PC comedy. Let's go ahead and let's be bald again. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens when we try to have an open discussion with everybody and try to see the funny side of our conflict. It's great. I'm super excited about this. Super, super excited. I'm really hopeful that this will take off. I'm really hopeful that this will become a trend and comedies like this will come back, because this is actually an interesting conversation I had with my sister over the weekend, that there aren't a lot of traditional sitcom comedies out there. Like, the only one that's actually still around is Will and Grace, and that's what's probably doing so well. But by the way, by traditional sitcom comedies, I mean the ones where you hear the audience laugh. Kind of like Friends, Frasier, How I Met Your Mother, all those where it's kind of like a play and you hear the audience laughing along with them. There aren't that many on TV right now. There's a few. I think it's Last Man Standing, Man with a Plan. I don't know if Two Broke Girls is on still. The Big Bang Theory, but it's in its final season. So I want that to come back because I love those shows. They were great shows, and there's a demand for it. Like I just said, Will and Grace is doing really well because it's not really competing with anybody. Over the weekend, I saw No Good Nick. It's a sitcom on Netflix. It stars Melissa Joan Hart, Sabrina from Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Clarissa Explains It All, and Sean Astin. That he plays Rudy. He plays Sam in Lord of the Rings trilogy. It's okay. It's funny. I mean, I binge-watched the whole thing. I did get a few laughs. But the whole time, I kept thinking that this was written for Chandler and Monica from Friends. The Sabrina and Rudy characters, I could not stop thinking that all their lines were written with Chandler and Monica in mind. So this is what would happen if Chandler and Monica had kids. And this is not a knock on Sabrina or Rudy at all. I think Rudy is too good of an actor for this. And by that I mean that he grows on you. He grows on you the same way the Bob character does in Stranger Things, who he also plays, that at first you're kind of iffy about, but you at the end you kind of appreciate. But comedy's hard, man, and sometimes it takes your brain a few seconds to adjust, maybe to see a dramatic actor play a comedic role. I don't know. To me, I think comedy's very hard. That's why, for those of you who don't know, I studied TV, film, and new media production, so I've written a few scripts, and I've always avoided comedy. Comedy is so hard. It's so subjective, and sometimes when you write it down on paper, it sounds really stupid and not funny at all. So kudos to anybody who tries to do comedy. I respect it so much. But back to the original point. This special could be a turning point for comedy, and here's what Norman Lear, the creator of both shows, had to say about it. They have said over and over that these two shows were meant for the 70s and would not work today. We disagree and are here to prove, with two great casts depicting All in the Family and the Jeffersons, the timelessness of human nature. I cannot wait to see what these glorious performers make in our time of these indelible characters, and I couldn't be more grateful for Jimmy Kimmel, Sony, and AVC for their collective willingness to conceive and pursue this never-been-done-before event. End quote. So there you go. Again, the 90-minute special will air on Wednesday, May 22nd on ABC, and I'll keep you posted with any more information of it. Right now, I was really happy when I read that article, and I hope you're as excited as I am. And honestly, go back and watch both shows. They are hysterical. Just remember, if you're overly sensitive, it's highly likely you'll get offended. I mean, if people going back to watch Friends are now finding reasons to complain and saying like, ooh, it's offensive, then yeah, if you're a little bitch, you'll get offended. Just stop the pussification of comedy, man. Just grow thicker skin, you know? It's not about you. They're not about offending you. It's offending everybody. It's great. Anyway, let's move on to Game of Thrones. So for those of you who haven't seen episode 2 of season 8 of Game of Thrones, it's called A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. And there will be spoilers ahead, so I highly recommend that you stop listening now. Otherwise, you're screwed. So I gave you a fair warning. Here's the summary of the episode according to IMDb. The Battle of Winterfell is approaching. Jaime's confronted with the consequences of his past. A tense interaction between Sansa and Daenerys follows. So I guess that's a fair description of what happened. And if you remember, last week I made 3 predictions of things I thought would happen during this episode of Game of Thrones. I predicted that Jon would not tell Daenerys that he was actually Aegon Targaryen. I was wrong there, so it's 1 point against me. I was pleasantly surprised that happened. I did not expect it to happen. I actually thought that Jon was going to tell somebody else, and that person was going to end up telling Daenerys. So 1 point against me. Another thing I predicted was that during Jaime's trial, Jaime was going to be forgiven. However, I did expect him to be forgiven because he confessed why he killed the Mad King and how he was trying to save everybody. However, it ended up being how Brienne actually stood up for him and vouched for him. So I'm going to say half point right, half point wrong. Because what I expected to happen did happen. It just didn't happen in the way that I expected it to happen, if that makes any sense. Anyway, I'm the one keeping score, so whatever. The last thing I predicted was that this episode was going to have a whole lot of nothing. No fighting, that it was going to end in a cliffhanger with the Army of the Dead arriving at Winterfell, and it was all going to be just a whole bunch of setup, exactly like episode 1. That, I think I nailed right on the nose. So I'll get more into that in The Good, the Bad, and the Martin. So for those of you who remember this segment from last week, I will be getting a little bit deeper than I did last time, mostly because people have been asking for my opinion about this subject in particular. They want me to actually chew on the bone a little more. And for those of you who are new, here's how the segment works. During the good, I'll mention the things that I liked from the episode. During the bad, I'll mention the things that sucked. And the final segment is called The Martin, after George R.R. Martin, the author of the books from which the TV show is based from. So I will mention one fun fact about either George or the books. So let's start with the good. Honestly, this one was bittersweet because my favorite moment of the episode was seeing Ghost again. Ghost, for those of you who don't remember, is Jon's direwolf, who hasn't appeared in 2 frickin' seasons. So I was super excited to see him again. I was happy they didn't forget about him, but I do have an ongoing bet with my little brother that Ghost is only going to appear in 2 episodes this season. One where they're going to show him so that people remember, oh, that's right, Jon had a direwolf. And the second is where he's going to die. So I don't like that they brought him back if they're just going to kill him next episode. It's infuriating how little they've used Ghost. You remember the Battle of the Bastards? A direwolf would have been super useful then. You remember the ranging up north when they go to try to kidnap a zombie? Ghost would have been super useful there. So it's infuriating, and the way that they brought him back, he was just standing there. Nobody reacted to him. If I walked next to a freaking wolf that's the size of a pony, I would acknowledge it. You at least pet it a little. Or even more likely, you freak out a bit. Or you say hi. You do something. You don't just turn your back to a freaking direwolf. But anyway, let's just say I was happy to see him back, mainly because it was an ongoing cause of stress for me. I was super stressed on what the hell is happening to Ghost. Why haven't they mentioned him? Why, in the situations where he'd be the most useful, is he not there? But at least they showed him. I just hope I'm wrong in my prediction that this means that in the next episode, he's going to get it. But It was good. They didn't forget about him. They could have gone the whole season without showing him again. Just hope that we'd forgotten. But at least some of us didn't. And they gave us a little cameo, which was something. Now, the fact that that was the brightest spot in the episode for me can give you a hint of what's about to come next in the bad. So just like I did last week, I will start with the most egregious thing, the thing that I found the most offensive, the thing that I found the worst for the show in general, and that is that nothing fucking happened. We're 2 episodes deep. 2. That's 1/3 of the season deep, and nothing has happened at all. 2 episodes of setup. 2. And setups that are stupid as fuck. The Daenerys Jon storyline, as I complained last week, is nonsensical. It could be solved super easily. And actually, all right, okay, I'm exaggerating. And I actually had this conversation yesterday with somebody where she said, oh, no, you're just upset because what? You mean nobody died? You mean there weren't any fights? No, what I mean that nothing happened is that the changes between the end of one episode and the end of another were minimal. And I can list them out for you. Here, you know what? I'll even do one better. I'll list out the things that have changed from the end of last season to the end of the latest episode. So 1, everybody arrives at Winterfell. 2, Jon learns how to ride a dragon. 3, Jon learns that he's Aegon Targaryen. 4, Daenerys learns that Jon is Aegon Targaryen. 5, Brienne is a knight. 6, Yara was released by Theon. 7, Cersei has sex with Euron. 8, Arya learns that Gendry is Robert's bastard. 9, Bronn is sent to assassinate Jaime and Tyrion. 10, Arya is no longer a virgin. That is it! 2 episodes of the final season. 2 of 6. 1/3 of your final season has been wasted on nothing! A whole lot of nothing. And they had an extra year to write this. They had an extra fucking year to write this fucking season. And they gave us nothing. Sure, a whole bunch of funny one-liners. And Davos feeding soup to kids who want to go fight, which makes no fucking sense. Don't let me... I don't want to get into that right now because I'll lose my shit. The point I'm making is that nothing has happened in fucking Game of Thrones, the final season. And they had so much material to work with. That's the most egregious crime. They had so much to work with. I could have fixed the show so easily, so many times. In fact, you know what? One day I'll just go back to show you, like, I'll do 1 or 2 minor switches in the story and how that would have made it so much better. I might. Let me know what you think. I'll put a pin on that one. Let me know if you actually want to know what I think should have been done on the show. Not the books. Like, on the show, the point of no return, when they're super far apart, I might do it. Especially if I keep getting stressed out like this. I don't get it. I don't get how you can have so much budget and so many characters and you still gave us nothing. You gave us the dumbest plot ever. They even mentioned it on this episode. Jon and Daenerys are in love. Marrying each other would solve all their fucking problems. And yet, they don't do it. Why? 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 Oh, this show gives me a fucking migraine. Anyway, a whole bunch of other things I didn't like. I don't understand why Lyanna Mormont is a thing. That's a 6-year-old telling her uncle, I know in the show they say cousin, but it's actually uncle, but whatever. All right, fine. Cousin, telling her older cousin, experienced warrior, experienced knight. Well, he's not a knight technically because the North doesn't have knights, but whatever. An experienced soldier. Fuck you, you bow down to me. You kowtow to me. I don't care that you're one of the closest advisors to the queen. Fuck you, you kowtow to me. And he did it! He bowed to a little fucking girl! Are you kidding me? Could you imagine that? Could you let's start with how responsible it is to tell a freaking minor that she can be a part of the battle. Why would you ever listen to her? Why? You're an adult. She's a child. And also, okay, let's say she brought the warriors from Bear Island. By that point, Bear Island has like 6 warriors, and they were all standing behind her. You came in with the freaking legions of the Targaryens. You are the heir of Bear Island by rights. You've been pardoned by the queen. You have... Point is, I don't care for that character. And I don't care about all this kowtowing they've been doing to characters that haven't earned it. I may get into it later on. Right now, I don't want to get into it because to me, it's the most annoying part of the show, and I will probably lose it. Anyway, another thing that I didn't like is why are all your commanders getting drunk and not sleeping the night you know you're going to get invaded by the army of the dead? I don't understand it. At least lie down. At least Sam lied down. I don't get it. Also, why does Sam think that killing Bran is going to destroy all human memory? I mean, he knows books exist, right? He knows books better than everybody. That's how, throughout history, we've been collecting human memories. By writing them down. Having them inside of one dude's head is not helpful for humanity. You know how it is? You write them down and you share with everybody. Anyway, if you want to make an argument that Bran's useful because he's the most powerful psychic up to that point, or because he has visions, or because he, I don't know, maybe could warg into ravens and go scout where the army of the dead is, which, by the way, I don't understand why he hasn't done it at this point, or, I don't know, warg into a freaking dragon and go and destroy those bitches. I don't know why he hasn't done that either. No, but instead, you know what, let's just put him in the Godswood to lure out the Night King, because that sounds like such a smart plan. Let's just waste our dragons here guarding him, but not too close, because, the only thing that can really kill these guys is fire, for sure. And, fire spreads, so it'd be super easy. It would be really convenient if we had a way to, spread fire through the air. If we had something that could fly and spread fire way better and way further than everything else. But nah, that'd be too easy. That'd be too convenient. We have to keep those weapons in the back, because otherwise, where's the fun in that? We won't get to kill any of the zombies. Also, and this was just driving me nuts, you cannot melt obsidian. Obsidian is dragon glass, by the way. You cannot melt it. That is not how that works. Those rocks were formed because of the pressure and the heat inside of volcanoes. You cannot melt it and turn it into something else. Ask any geologist out there. You can break it into a way that it's sharp, which is how Native Americans used to do it. Well, I mean, Native Latin Americans. They're still Native Americans. I don't give a fuck. That's how they used to do it, and that's how they used to turn it into weapons. But those weapons are not very strong. But whatever. It's not like logic matters anymore. It's not like what happened. It's not like consistency. It's not like anything matters anymore. Nothing matters anymore. All right, so that's enough for the bad for today. Let's just move on to the Martin. So a fun fact about George R. R. Martin's writing, I enjoyed this. It was a part that I considered putting in the good for this segment, but I decided to save it specifically for this fun fact. Also because I didn't particularly care for the whole sequence in which it happened. The title of the episode, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, which is how Jaime knights Brienne. Well, there's a fun backstory to that. George R. R. Martin has another series of books called The Tales of Dunk and Egg, in which George R. R. Martin tells the story of Sir Duncan the Tall and Aegon Targaryen. Now, this is not Aegon the Conqueror. This is, for those of you who remember, Maester Aemon, who was the Targaryen, who was the blind maester for the Night's Watch, that guy. Well, he mentions that he has a brother, a younger brother, and that the reason that he joined the Night's Watch was so that they wouldn't try to make him usurp his brother's throne. And for those of you who remember, as Maester Aemon was dying, he was saying, "Egg, egg, I dreamt I was old." Anyway, he was talking about his brother Aegon, also known as Aegon the Unlikely, and he was called that because he was the fourth son of the fourth son. Anyway, the books tell the adventures of Sir Duncan the Tall and Aegon Targaryen all throughout the Seven Kingdoms. It's actually a really fun read. I won't get too into it. You get to learn a lot about the Blackfire Rebellion. But anyway, Sir Duncan the Tall is the only knight who's actually known as a Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, or that he's ever mentioned as a Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, because he traveled all throughout Westeros. And the omnibus of all those stories is actually titled A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. The reason why this is relevant is because it's been long theorized that Brienne is actually a descendant of Sir Duncan the Tall. There's a few hints here and there throughout the books. I won't get too into it. So it was a nice little throwback. There was a nice little Easter egg. I appreciated it. It was fun. And I highly recommend you read those books if you have a chance. It's super fun. You get to see a trial of the seven, which is, I won't spoil anything. It's a really fun read. And I think there's even comics about that, so if you want to go for the shorter version, do it. I highly recommend it. Anyway, that's it for today's segment of The Good, the Bad, and the Martin. Let me know what you think of this format. Do you enjoy that I get a little bit deeper, even though I may lose my cool a little? Would you prefer to me just go back to just stick to one thing and one thing only to let this be a little bit more positive? I don't know. Let me know what you think. And as a reminder, this is Avengers Week. This is Endgame Week. So I'll be back tomorrow and I'll do the top 3 things I hope happen and the top 3 things I hope don't happen during Avengers Endgame. And I'm doing it tomorrow because I'm going to a press screening afterwards. So it's the only chance I'll have to actually do it before I see the movie. And don't worry about it. I won't do any spoilers at all afterwards. I may wait until next week before I even mention anything about the movie. So you can be relaxed there. I hate spoilers. I may just give a thumbs up or thumbs down on Wednesday. I don't know. I'll think about it. Anyway, let me know what you think. As always, please follow me on Instagram at Dario the Show. You can send me any of your thoughts, questions, suggestions there. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you tomorrow.